All right, hello everyone. We'll get started here. So just like to introduce myself, I am Mark Bernhardt. I am president of Bernhardt Contracting. We are a local builder here in town, and I am currently serving as the vice president of the Canadian Home Builders Vancouver Island branch. And Canadian Home Builders are an organization of builders. We represent 8,000 builders, developers, and trade contractors across the country. And we are the voice of the residential building community. And our aim is to create not only a stable work environment for our members, but a greater sense of professionalism within the building trade to allow the customers to have better experience as well. And today we're talking about getting it in writing and the importance of having a written record all the way through your project, whether that project is big or small. So typically when we are renovating or building any type of project, we have two main goals. We want to make our dream a reality, and we don't want it to turn into some sort of disaster. There are 3 steps to making that come true. The first step is to get informed, and that's what we're doing here today. The second step would be to hire a contractor if you need one. And then the third is to actually start your project and follow it through to completion. Now, if we're to get informed, the first thing we need to do is inform ourselves about what we actually want to do. It's actually quite surprising how many calls we get of people who have thought they want to do something, but they're not really sure what yet. And if you're at that point, it's not quite time to talk to the professionals yet. The first thing you really need to look at doing is figure out what you actually want to change in your project or in your home, or what you actually want to build. Make a list of that. Actually write it down. Perhaps go and search out magazines, cut out pictures that you like, go to the web, download some pictures that you like, and put them all together in a scrapbook or a collage or whatever form that suits you. Set your priorities and your goals. You know, what do you need versus what do you want? And what sort of things are you thinking you might want to get, maybe if we can, and what sort of things we absolutely have to have. Do we absolutely have to have another bathroom? But maybe we want the pool, right? And also set out a wish list. Well, and if we can, while we're there, maybe we can do this too, and maybe we can add these other things on there as well. If you have that all written down or in some sort of collected manner, it's a lot easier for me as your builder to help you out and help you realize your dreams. One of the worst things I do in my job is kill people's dreams because of what they've asked for is not within their budget. And it's really heartbreaking for me as much as it is heartbreaking for our clients as well. There's a few keys to sticking within your budget. Number 1 is set your priorities. What do you really need? What do we really need to accomplish with this? Dreams are wonderful, but let's be realistic. Making early choices and sticking to them. Now, at this stage in your project, when we're just collecting our ideas and making our scrapbooks of what we want, making choices, I don't mean pick your paint colors. It's probably a little bit too early for that. But how many bedrooms does your house need to have? Do you need 4 bathrooms? Do you need 3 bathrooms? That's the sort of choices we're talking about at an early stage. If you're doing a renovation, looking closely at what you already have. Does your house have natural assets? If you're feeling like you need a little bit more space, maybe it's just the layout of your house that needs to change to be more efficient. Maybe we don't need to add the addition. And adding the addition can be significantly more expensive than just reconfiguring rooms. Are you able to do the work in stages? Maybe we start with the kitchen and then we move on to the bathroom and then the bedrooms. We can space it out over 2 years and spread that cost out. We always need to consider operating costs versus the capital costs. There are no end to lists of equipment that we could put in a house, and sometimes it's worth spending just a little bit more to make that machine operate more efficiently so we can afford to run it for the next 50 years. And that's worth looking at the early stages. And then you need to consider doing some of the work yourself, if that is an option. And we'll come back to that later. Now, I mentioned being realistic in your budget. This table is actually hard to see, but it's a table we use for our clients to help guide them to a realistic position of where they actually stand within the finishes of their house. And we all have these grand dreams, and sometimes what you see on TV isn't, they don't really tell you how much it costs, and it can be quite misleading. So we use this table, and other contractors will use various different forms of this to help guide people. Are you a premium finish sort of person, or are we happy and content with something a little more basic? Does that meet our needs? And so we use something like this to guide people around, and it's important, I think, for everybody embarking on any sort of reno or build to really take an honest look at what they actually need again, and allow them to stay within the budget. So now that we've done our kind of brainstorming, and we know what we want, we've thought about a realistic budget. Maybe we've put a number to that. Maybe we've even already been to the bank and figured out exactly what we can afford. It's time to start putting that design into a little bit more coherent and concrete form. And this is where you probably want to start talking to a professional. Maybe that's a designer, maybe that's an architect. A lot of builders have this design professional in-house and can provide that service for you as well. What's really important about this stage is getting those ideas down on paper into a coherent plan that you are willing to stick to. And the more planning you do at this stage, the more time, the more careful thought you put into this will save you dramatically at the end. It will save you in change orders. It will save you in missed things. It'll save you in the builder coming to you and saying, well, we can't actually build this. And it tends to pay off quite dramatically. I can give you a good example. This house in the picture, it's actually a sixplex that we built a number of years ago. And those dormers on the top there look fantastic, right? We put those on there at the request of the neighbors. They wanted it to fit in with the neighborhood, and so we said, sure, why not? We'll put those on without really considering the consequences of doing that. We didn't put the time that we really ought to have in considering what the consequences of making a change like that would do to this building. It dramatically increased the cost of the building, and mostly because there's 5 different angled roofs there that all intersect in roughly the same place. Inside it looks fabulous. There's vaulted ceilings and all sorts of things, but it was a rather nasty shock to pay for that. And it's an easy thing to avoid with just a little bit more careful thought in the planning and design stage. So I mentioned earlier, you can do some of the work yourself, and you absolutely can if you have the skills to do it. And we need to really look honestly at ourselves and at this stage when we're deciding whether to hire a pro or not. The question is to ask yourself, do you need a permit? Thanks to some very positive rule changes, if you are doing a major renovation or a house build, unless you are a licensed builder or have gone through the homeowner builder licensing program, the municipalities will not give you a permit. And there's good reasons for that. If it's a small renovation, likely you will be able to get the permit yourself. And if it's a really small renovation, you may not need a permit at all. Do you have the time? If this is going to take you 6 weekends to complete this job, is your family okay with that? Are you okay with being out without your bathroom for 6 weekends in a row? And maybe you should ask the rest of the household whether they're also okay with that. And the final point here is, if you're doing it to save money, let's make sure that you actually are saving money. And the example that I usually use for this is insulation. We hire insulation contractors all the time, and they can buy and install the insulation cheaper than we can go down to the lumber store and buy it for. So you will never catch us installing insulation because it's just not worth it. And I expect that there are some jobs within your renos or your builds that would be the same. There's also a few jobs that a DIYer or a weekend warrior really ought not to be taking on. That would be the plumbing, electrical, gas. These things, it's relatively easy to do a whole lot of damage very quickly. Certainly changing a toilet or a tap, I would expect a weekend warrior to easily be able to take on that, but replumbing your hot water tank, rewiring your house, you can actually void your home insurance by doing that, and potentially burn down your house and have no insurance, which is a thoroughly undesirable situation to be in. Any sort of roofing or exterior work as well that involves heights. My team typically carries with them about $1,000 worth of gear to make sure that they are safe, and several of them have actually tested that gear and found that it does actually work. Walked away with a little bit of bruising and a little bit of bruising into their ego, but otherwise unhurt. And unless you're willing to invest in that gear, you can ask WCB down the booth there exactly what you might need. It's really important that we avoid these type of things. And asbestos and lead, we've actually got someone in a booth over at the CHBA table there from Removal that can help you with this sort of thing. The rules for asbestos and lead are extremely tight for very good reason. Most of you, I think understand that. This is not something a homeowner is going to take on. We don't take it on. We are professional contractors. We do not take this job on. We sub it to somebody like Removal. So now that we've planned our job, we've got our ideas down on paper, and we've decided to hire a contractor. It's important to inform ourselves about what to expect from the contracts themselves. And a contract is an agreement between the two parties that most importantly protects both of us. It protects me from you doing something silly, and it protects you from me doing something silly. So they're absolutely critical. We insist on them in all of our jobs, even the small ones. The contract may change depending on the size, but it's important that there be at least something there. There's a few different types of contracts that you might see. The most common two are the fixed price or the cost plus. The fixed price contract, typically we would see that most often in a case where the scope of the project is really well defined. So if it's something that's clear, it's easy to define what it is. Say, I've got this back deck, it's going to be 10 by 10, and it's going to be made out of cedar. That's easy to define. And me as a contractor can set a fixed price on that because I know how many boards I'm going to need, and it's quite easy to do. Typically in a renovation where things are a little unknown, we don't really know what we're getting into until we open up a wall, you're more likely to see a cost plus. And it allows us a little bit more flexibility. It does put the risk on the homeowner for cost escalation. So you're paying for everything. And unlike with a fixed price contract where if the contractor misestimated something, maybe didn't count the right number of boards, that risk is on the contractor, provided you didn't change anything. There's also a design build. If you're doing a build with a builder that has the designer in-house, they'll take that whole part on, and this can take the form of a cost plus or a fixed price, depending on what the preference is there. We also see from time to time unit prices. Typically that would be done with a trade contractor, and they'd give you a square foot price on some sort of install, say flooring or lighting. And I can't say whether one is better than the other. It really depends on the situation. It depends on what you're comfortable with. If you need a guaranteed price, probably the fixed price is best for you. If you're a little more flexible, maybe you can go to a cost plus. In my experience with our jobs, typically a fixed price is actually a little bit more expensive because if we're taking the risk, we're going to make sure that we're covered. And that would be the same for most contractors, I'd expect. The information that needs to be in your contract. It's the who, what, where, when, and how much. So your contract, when it comes to you, even if it's for a small job, it should say, contractor so-and-so is going to install a toilet. they're going to install it in your main bathroom. Then the who is responsible for it. Plumber Tony is responsible for going to get the permit. When are we going to do it? We're going to do it between Tuesday and Thursday of next week. And how much that will cost. These are the basics. And even the smallest job will have this on it in their contract. If it is a small trade job that you're having done, say maybe you're replacing an electrical switch, quite often these things will be written right on the quote, and acceptance of that quote will constitute the contract. Maybe they'll be written in the fine print on the back, but they'll be there somewhere if you're dealing with a proper contractor. The other things I like to also see on a contract, particularly for bigger jobs, is a change order process. How are we going to deal with it if I change my mind, or if something comes up and we have to alter the contract somehow? A dispute resolution process. What happens if you think I made a mistake or I think you made a mistake? What do we do? And a termination process. If that mistake happens to be large enough that you don't want to work with me anymore, what is the process that you have to follow in order to get rid of me? It should also talk about payment terms as well. When are things due, how much a holdback can be, and whether there's a warranty on the work at all. We'll get more on talking about warranties a little bit later. This is a set of example terms from a short form contract. This would be for a smaller job, say an under $10,000 job. Just a snapshot of some payment terms that you might see. And there's any number of different ways that this could be worded. Something like this you might see on the back of an estimate as the fine print or as part of a separate document. And it simply outlines things such as how much interest is paid on late fees. How long do you have to pay? Is there going to be a deposit charged? And what is the holdback amount? Things like that. And one of the terms I really like on this one, and we actually use is the bottom one. If you're going to ask me to do more work after we've already completed a job, I'm just going to need you to pay the last bill, please. And it's something you'll see quite common and easy to deal with, but quite common. So now that we understand the contracts, we know what to expect of what we're going to see on the contracts. We've made our design. We decided to hire a contractor. Where are we actually going to find that contractor? Of course, my favorite place to find contractors is the Canadian Home Builders. And there's a website right there listed. And you can also visit us over in our booth just over here. We have a list of pre-vetted contractors. They go through an application process, agree to a code of ethics, and we scrutinize their qualifications. The board of directors is actually quite harsh. And we actually check their references and ensure that they are a legitimate contractor doing a good business, pleasing their customers, and doing generally a good job at what they do. You can also ask for recommendations from friends and family. There's no better recommendation really than from somebody you trust. What is important to remember though is if you get a recommendation from your neighbor because your neighbor had a contractor do their deck, we need to ensure that the guy that did the deck also knows how to do a bathroom if you're going to ask him how to do a bathroom, because they are quite different. So whenever I meet a new client, I actually go with a plan to interview them and see if this is a person that I want to work with. And I expect you to do the same to me. There are a few key things that I expect you to ask me. I expect you to ask me what my qualifications are, in quite a lot of detail. I expect you to ask me what projects I've done. If you want me to do your bathroom, I expect you to ask me about all the other bathrooms that I've done. I expect you to ask for my references, and I expect you to check those references. If I come to an estimate meeting or to quote your job and you ask for those things, I actually have a package with me. I have a paper copy and I have a digital copy. And so I hand it over to you right away, and the package that I give to you actually includes all of our jobs for the last 10 years, how big they were, a short description, what it cost, where it was, and a phone number of who to call. And you can call any one of those. And most contractors will provide, maybe not quite that many, but they will provide that. And you may have to ask for it, but every legitimate contractor will be able to provide that to you with ease, without having to chase them. It's standard procedure. It's also a good idea, particularly at this stage, maybe you just met this person, you're just inviting them to their house to show you where the project is to ask for their suggestions. The worst case scenario is that they come up with a better idea, and we have to go alter the design. And it's also a really good way of getting to know whether this contractor is interested in your job, if they're excited about it, if they're going to put the time that you deserve into whatever you're asking them to do. I always like to ask or provide a ballpark figure as well. When I come and estimate your project for you, I'll typically volunteer this information because I want to know where you stand price-wise. If I say your project is going to be between here, and you tell me, no, I was thinking over here, way down here, I can say, thank you, it's been nice meeting you. We can't afford to build that low, so let's not waste any more of our time. If you say we're way over here on the high end, I can say, wow, that's excellent. I don't know how to build that nice, so here's two other contractors that work in that field, and it's it is really important to find a contractor that does fit your needs, and we all work in different areas. There are those that build mansions, there are those that build in the mid-range, and there are those that build in the entry level, and it is important to find one that matches. While you're interviewing the contractor, maybe even before they get there, there are a few things that are actually really easy to check and take almost no time at all as well. The first is whether they are a legitimate business. They should have business liability insurance, a GST number and a business number, and a business license. Within the CRD, we're required to have a business license to operate a renovation or a building contracting company. And of course, we do need to pay taxes, so we need that business number, and nobody likes to be sued, so we also need the insurance. And those are very easy things to check. Most of that should probably appear on the quote that you get. In ours it does. It shows up that we have $20 million worth of insurance. It's on the bottom line, and it's for construction and all the other things that we do. And you can request a certificate if you wish to check further that proves exactly and what it exactly covers and how it would cover you in the event of an incident. Those are all very easy things to check. Even easier to check is the WorkSafe and the Licensed Builder Registry. These are both online, and you can actually just go in there and type in the name of a contractor and to see if they are in good standing with both of these organizations. So if you went to the WCB website right now and went into the clearance letter section and typed in Bernhardt Contracting, you would see a listing of our company, how long we've been in business, and whether or not we've had any fines. The Home Builders Registry, if you're doing a smaller renovation, your builder or your contractor may not be a licensed home builder, in which case they wouldn't appear on this registry. But if you're building a home or doing a major renovation, then they have to appear on this registry. And the same thing goes there. It's searchable. So any member of the public can go in there, search by name, and I believe you can also search by region and to help you find a contractor. And you will see the information pop up again with our address, our website, our contact information, a note about whether we're in good standing or not. And you're welcome to do it. Our license number is 38,000, and you can go check. It's very easy to do and takes no time at all. One major note of caution when we're talking to contractors and now that we're getting ready to actually hire one is the cash deal. We have been offered cash deals many occasions, and they're quite worrisome for a number of reasons. First of all, to make sure we all are on the same page of exactly what I mean a cash deal. A cash deal is when you're offering your contractor cash in order to remove the taxes or some other fees. You can still pay me in cash if you want, but as long as it includes GST. So payment method doesn't matter to me. It's mostly whether or not we pay the taxes. And what it does is remove your protection. It removes the paper trail. Typically that also removes the contract. I'm not sure why you'd write down the fact that you're committing fraud, tax fraud. So we're without a contract, and that removes basically all of your recourse should something go wrong. And if it were up to me, if I'm interviewing a contractor and they've just admitted they're willing to commit fraud, that's perhaps somebody that you don't want to give your house keys to. So now that we've got our few contractors selected, it's time to compare their bids. It's really important to read all of the fine print and check every aspect of the bid. And now price is a factor, and quite often price is the determining factor, but it really ought not to be the main only factor. It really needs to come down to trust and confidence in this person's ability to complete the job. And we've noticed this time and again that the best price does not always mean the best job. And I can give you an example of that actually came to us and happened to us just 2 weeks ago. We sent out a request for quotes for a railing on a project we're working on, and we've generally worked with two different companies before. They're both reputable companies. We've worked with them before. We know these people. We've checked them out. We've done our research on them. And now typically what will happen on our jobs is that the subtrade will phone us and tell us what the price is, and that they know me, so they automatically send the written quote as well. We won't accept just the phone quote, but they'll typically phone me, tell me what it is, and then send along their paper quote. So when I got this call, these two calls, I thought, oh great, written guy B's definitely going to get this one. That's a no-brainer. But then we got the written quote. There's a very subtle difference, very subtle. And even though I know these guys, I work with them all the time, it still trips us up. We still, even as professional contractors, we still have to read that fine print. And now one of these guys excluded the glass in the engineering. It was a glass railing. We kind of needed that part. Now I should also say, in fairness to these guys, I actually did know that Railing Guy B doesn't really do glass, and that it would be normal for them to exclude it. But if I was a member of the general public, the things I would be worried about here is why are they excluding something that is so critical to the railing? Are they unfamiliar with the job? Are they nervous about something? There's all these reasons why they might do it. Some of them are quite legitimate. In this case, it was quite legitimate. They didn't have the in-house expertise to do it, so they excluded it. But it's a subtle difference in the quote that we really need to watch out for. And of course, the actual final cost then is really what we're aiming for, right? I mean, we want our final cost to be fair. We want the job to be completed properly. So now we've gone through, we've hired our favorite contractor, we've got our plans, the plans are ready to roll, and we're just about to start the job. We've got everything in writing so far, all the contract is signed, and our plans are looking great. It's now time to get into a real thorough detail of exactly what your responsibilities are during the project. And what we do with all our clients that are doing bigger jobs of any kind is have a sit-down meeting and discuss exactly what to expect and what you have to do to keep this contract valid, so that we don't run into trouble and we don't end up fighting about it halfway through the job and you've got no roof on your house. Communication is key, and what we will do is sit down with you and actually highlight all the important terms in the contract, the parts that people most often go wrong on, or most often don't understand. And we will actually read that contract together. And hopefully by the end of that, you really thoroughly understand it. You thoroughly understand why we want that contract. You thoroughly understand what your rights are, what your responsibilities are. And then we can move through the job in a swimming fashion. Generally, those responsibilities from the contractor side are to protect your interests, make sure the job moves smoothly, and doesn't take an unnecessarily long amount of time. And we don't want to disrupt your life for any longer than we have to, right? The contractor is responsible for keeping you informed, telling you how it's going, keeping you up to date on the schedule, that sort of thing. The contractor is also responsible for meeting deadlines. If I say your bathroom reno is going to take 5 days, it darn well better take 5 days. That is my responsibility. The contractor is also responsible generally, unless you specify otherwise, for cleanup. This is a contractor responsibility, and in our contracts we actually define what that means. Typically, the guys doing the cleanup are carpenters, and their standard of clean is not what you would expect your average, person to see as clean. So our contract actually specifies what we mean. It says that we will vacuum up all the sharp stuff, all the screws, all the bigger debris, and we will use a shop vac to do that. Anything that a shop vacuum cannot get is the homeowner's responsibility. So that would include dusting. So we're very clear with our homeowners that you're probably going to have to dust for messy guys. And now we have on occasion where that wasn't acceptable, been contracted to hire a cleaning crew and take care of that. So again, it's about understanding your contract and where your responsibilities lie. We can do it any which way, but we have to be prepared, and it's important to know what to expect. It's nothing worse than being surprised by the amount of dust that comes off of a demo project. The homeowner is also responsible for a lot of things. Number one, and actually one of the things that causes us most friction when we go into somebody's house, is cleaning up for us in advance. You have to imagine that when we strap on our tools, I'm 3 feet wide with my tool belt on. I need some space. And having grandmother's 100-year-old antique table right beside where I need to work is not an ideal situation. And so it's really helpful to your contractor if you can clean up and just have all that stuff out of the way. Let's deal with the problem before we get there. Making selections as early as possible and sticking to them, I would add to that point. This is mostly so that I can plan, right? I need to be able to plan, I need to be able to order. It allows us to move fluidly through the project if I know what the cabinet is, if I know what the tile is. A lot of these projects have a lot of lead time. It takes 6 weeks to order them. And there's nothing worse than being ready for it and having to wait. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to take the crew and go put them somewhere else instead of just being able to roll with it because the tile showed up on time. Keeping changes to a minimum. This goes back to our earlier discussion about having that plan, having a really thought out, well-designed, written plan. If we thought about it in advance, ideally we don't need to make any changes now afterwards. Being available for your contractor. We've had clients hand us the keys to their house and then go to Tahiti for 3 months. And while that sounds like a lot of fun, and quite often it is better to have the homeowner out of the house, I still need to be able to get you on the phone. There's always going to be something, whether it's a change or what have you, a decision I need to make. As long as you're reachable is our requirement. And if you're not reachable, what we'll have our clients do is actually designate a decision maker. Whether that be a friend or what have you, it's somebody that they're willing to put their paycheck behind and make a decision for them, because there are times when we need a decision, regardless of what beach you're sitting on. Again, with the communication, keeping the discussion open and bringing any concerns up as early as possible. There's no reason to let something fester, to worry about something. The best clients that we have, as soon as they notice something that they think is maybe out of the ordinary or they're not happy with, they point at it and say, what about that? And in some cases, we just hadn't noticed it. Oh yeah, then we can take care of that, right? If we go through the whole job not noticing that, for whatever reason, it all of a sudden becomes a problem to fix at the end, right? Because now maybe we've got to bring painters back or something like that. So, keeping that line of communication open at all times to discuss any concerns is really key. And of course, paying your contractor on time. It costs a lot of money to run a business like this. We're typically shelling out tens of thousands per day if your project is of any size. And most of us are using our own lines of credit to do that. So if we miss a payment from you, it becomes quite a financial burden. And quite often, what you'll see on a renovation from a renovation contractor is that they will require payment on Friday, and if they don't get payment, they will not show up on Monday. And it's just because of that financial burden that they're placed under. If they have to shell out for $100,000 worth of cabinets on a Tuesday, it's a lot to hold. So, we do expect to be paid on schedule. I will say though, schedules can be adapted, and this is something we've done for a lot of our clients, particularly our commercial clients, where they know they won't have income at certain times of the month. And as long as that's known ahead of time, it's very easy to adapt to. So again, with the communication, everything can be adapted. So now that we've started the project and we're into it, it's important to keep that written communication going at all times, so that we don't get complacent and start falling behind. The two main items that we use the most documentation for on our projects are change orders and deficiencies, which is effectively a change order. A change order is when you've changed your mind. You've decided you want blue tile instead of green tile. So what happens is you will tell me that. I will do a document that says we are now changing the green tile to blue tile, and I will send it back to you for approval, maybe with a cost change, maybe not. Typically the change order will say it changed this cost this much, it changes the time of the project by this much, and sign here if you agree. If you don't agree, we'll select the blue tile. Hidden deficiencies are something else, and they can be quite a problem. This is when we pull the wall of your house off and we find termites. It still becomes effectively a change order, except it's coming from me this time to say we found termites, we think it might cost this much, agree or disagree. If you disagree, we need to start following the other processes that'll be laid out in the contract for how we solve this problem, and how do we move it forward. And again, the communication is key, and keeping that written record. Even during our projects, we keep a massive volume of written records. My preference during our projects is to communicate with our clients by text message or by email, and I will still answer your phone call, but typically it'll be followed up by an email saying we just talked about this, because I can't even count the number of times that I've been on the phone with a client and they've said they've made a decision and immediately get another phone call and completely forget what that decision is. If it's written down, we don't have that problem, and if I then forget, it's my problem. It is not your problem, and that's a much nicer position to be in. The hidden defects. This is actually from a project that we worked on. Those little orange things there are termites, and this project is actually a real success story. We were called in to renovate a commercial bathroom. It was supposed to be quick and easy. You know, $10,000, no big deal, quick spruce up. I believe when we left, the final bill was around $60,000, and we ended up redoing the whole back wall. But this client understood the contract. We followed the process. We did our change order. We completed the project, and we followed it through to the end. In the end, we've now been back to this building to do other work, the client remains one of our best clients, even though we had what is effectively the worst discovery you can find in your average building. So having that communication, keeping those documentations, has paid off enormously. And we actually still have this project took place a few years ago, and we actually still have that documentation. And that has been important in other projects that we've had. When we build a house for somebody, we video camera the walls before we put up the drywall. And I've had my clients come back to me 2 years later and say, I'm thinking about hanging a TV, where are the pipes? And well, once the drywall's on, but we send the video, and so it's all levels of documentation that come in handy, and we use it again and again, even years later. So it becomes really important. So now we've made it all the way through the project. We've kept our records, and everybody's hopefully happy by this point. The change order's worked out, and it's time to start activating the warranty and any follow-up service that might be required. And the biggest area of confusion that we run into here is what is actually covered. If you're building a new home, the coverage is required by law and is very specific. I've got an excerpt here from the Homeowner Protection Office's Residential Guide to Construction. This is the minimum standard that all construction in BC must meet in order to qualify for the new home warranty. And now you'll notice there that the minimum standard for a crack in concrete is 1/4 inch. That's huge. As far as the new home warranty is concerned, if you've got 1/4 inch crack or less, not a crack. We don't care. In my opinion, that's a rather huge crack. And the picture there is a crack on one of our jobs. Now that is not 1/4 inch crack, so I am not obligated to fix that under the terms of the warranty. We did fix it. Don't worry. I mean, it was an obvious place and it needed to be fixed. I could not live with that crack. But under the terms of the warranty, strictly speaking, we were not obligated to do that. If you've got a renovation warranty, and not all renovation companies do offer warranties, the coverage varies. The coverage varies quite dramatically, and it is up to the homeowner to understand that coverage. And the coverage may vary dramatically per product, per job, not just job to job. So it is important for you to understand exactly what you're getting, and that will be in the fine print of any good estimate or any good contract as well. And that information should be available to you. And that takes us all the way through the documentation for your project. If you'd like to follow up with more helpful resources, a number of key websites here. I've got the Get in Writing rat card at the back there. You're welcome to take one. There's also some information from my company there as well, which you're also welcome to take. And if you have any questions, I think we've got a bit of time for questions, and I will be going to hang out at the CHBA booth after this if you want to talk one-on-one.